hurt you in any way? Okay.
Little this way.
Yes, okay.
Too tight.
Too tight. Ele tá falando que tá muito perto.
Ok, não. Pensei que ele queria...
Aí.
Okay, that's better.
Ok. Foco Crítico, edição extraordinária. Ralph Gibson.
Guilherme,
Boa noite.
Maranhão.
Fausto Chermont.
Bom.
Me chama Rafinho.
Rafinha ou Ralfinho, ok. Thank you. Bom,
Boa noite.
Boa noite. Fazer uma pequena apresentação. Nós estamos aqui na exposição do Ralph Gibson, que inaugura em alguns minutos. A gente vai ter 10 minutos com ele. Bom, Ralph Gibson é precursor do trabalho autoral da fotografia mundial há 45 anos. Ele trilhou o próprio caminho estético, econômico, fundou uma editora para editar livros pessoais.
A Lustrum Press.
Lustrum Press, obrigado, Guilherme. E publicou livro de Marilyn Mark, Larry Clark,
Robert Frank.
Bom, vocês podem perceber que a coisa é interessante. E hoje aqui a exposição dele é um trabalho inédito de câmeras digitais. Eu vou começar perguntando primeiro em inglês, eu não vou traduzir, infelizmente, a entrevista. Mas eu vou perguntar primeiro a respeito da origem do trabalho, e depois a gente entra no projeto da exposição. Obrigado. Good night, Ralph. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Lovely to be here.
Okay. Did you enjoy the place, the exhibition? How do you feel?
A lovely installation. I'm quite pleased. Immediately, I saw that Valeria understood the work.
Oh.
And so you could always tell when you have your work on the wall just how much the gallery understands.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
The guys here are going to appreciate that.
Good to hear. Yeah.
And then let's talk about the beginning, about how you moved from LA to New York to publish your book, or you publish your book in LA already?
No, I moved to New York because LA was just too primitive for me. And I wrote in my journal, it's not good or bad to be sophisticated. But I was too sophisticated for Los Angeles in the 60s. And I got to New York, and within 1 week, I was already working for magazines and things. So it was a moment. I came to New York. I was going to spend 1 week. I had $200. I was at the Chelsea Hotel, and I said, I'm not going to go back to Los Angeles. So I started my career in New York with $200. That's how you could do it then.
And the rest is history anyway, but people here don't know exactly. Let's talk about your first book, because it was a little bit better printed than the usual books at the time. I never saw a copy, but people say that your books were very, very concerned about quality, and then it was very interesting, the concept of the book and the pictures, everything works together. How was done? How did you manage to have the presentation who did the art direction of your books? Yourself?
Well, you have to understand, in the late 60s, the only way a photographer could make a reputation was with a book. No galleries, you had to have a book. However, during this period when photographers would have a picture reproduced in a magazine or something, the magazine would come out and people would look at it, and the first thing the photographer would say, well, I did not lose too much in reproduction.
Okay. This was a success story.
As if the idea of reproduction meant that you were going to lose something. Now we have to understand, I was a photographer in the Navy when I was very young, and on my ship, the photography department was also, we had a press, a lithographic press, a 38-inch Harris, which is like the very fundamental press. And I would make halftone negatives for the lithographer. So I kind of understood the lithographic process. Now, I wanted to make a book that was different. My generation was completely taken by two books, The Decisive Moment and The Americans. And they were very different. They were very documentary, but very different. But those were the two books that were what we really looked at. I was briefly working out of Magnum, as you know, and then I met Robert Frank and I started working with him. And I didn't want to do the conventional kind of thing. And I realized that I was photographing a dream. Just like in this room now, there's Wi-Fi, there's television, there's telephone, there's radio. So I thought that my camera had discovered a dream world, and I was going to continue to follow this. So I worked for 3 years on the sequence.
Okay.
Now the sequence was everything in the Somnambulist. It was extremely exigeant. I would make one picture and everything would change. And I worked on it for 3 years. 48 pictures for 3 years. Now, this means it was very, very tight. It was as tight as the head of a drum when I finally published it. So I went to Los Angeles, and during this period in Los Angeles, America had just gone to the moon in 1968. And there was a tremendous amount of research for the government in Los Angeles, and the companies had big budgets, and they would spend a lot of money on their annual reports.
Okay.
So the lithographers in Los Angeles were the best.
Oh, that's interesting.
They had big budgets, they were very creative guys, and so I come along with the Somnambulist, and I say, you know, I really want the black to be strong. I want it to sit on top of the page, the black ink. And because I had helped with the negatives and I understood things, I was able to make a book where I didn't lose anything, I gained something.
Okay.
You see, the Somnambulist is when I started shooting. My next book was Deja Vu, and from the Somnambulist, I went to the sunny side of the street and I started making my shadows very black. And I learned from lithography how I was going to find my particular one.
So aesthetically, actually, you think you start the career in the second book, kind of?
Well, I learned a lot from the process.
Okay.
The book-making process not only informed my vision, but it informed how I was going to produce the object. And that's how it really should be.
Yes.
I didn't lose anything, I got a lot, I gained a lot.
And then at that start, you start selling prints more, or start having go work?
It was very difficult. There was nobody to sell the prints. All the pictures from the Somnambulist, Deja Vu, you could have had them in the early 70s for $25, but nobody wanted them. But I did not want to be a commercial photographer. I did not want to be a teacher, and I didn't want to be a commercial photographer. So I had shows, I would sell to magazines, I would get a little grant. I was young, I had a lot of energy, and I did not need much money.
And then you start working with a lot of very, como é que fala, seminal people in very, very different genre of photography, like Marilyn Mark, that's one of my heroes of my life. She just died. And Larry Clark, that's a lot of work. All the Larry Clark's books your printing company did, or just the first ones?
Just the first one, Tulsa, and we went to the same printer in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I did those books with Larry and Mary Ellen was because I had gone through the process of making a book. And, you know, I was living at the Chelsea Hotel when I was working on the Somnambulist. I had 2 of my 3 Leicas in the pawn shop. I owed 9 months' rent, back rent. And then out comes a Somnambulist, and all of a sudden, I have a reputation.
Yes.
Around the world, in a very small field, art photography, but I am instantly recognized.
Did you get the Leicas out of the pawn shop?
Yeah, eventually I did. And I paid the hotel.
Who else lived in Chelsea Hotel?
Oh, it was great. I became very good friends at that time with Leonard Cohen. He was there.
Wow.
I was playing my guitar on the roof, and he came up, and we started playing, and I eventually played on one of his albums. We stayed friends for years. Everybody was at the Chelsea then. It was fun.
And you never did Selene Antonio print. This is a true story?
Yes, that's a very true story.
And what I read, it's also the same, that's because you don't want to be impotent. That's what I read somewhere.
No, but that's a good reason.
Okay.
Because of the selenium?
Talk about the camera now, and then the exhibition, and then we're going out.
Some of these rumors are great.
No, I read that, actually.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I can tell you the camera, the magazine, Camera Darkroom, I think.
Well, but selenium, that was before Viagra. You have to understand.
Yes! Oh, this is going the way I want it.
So, the exhibition here, we're at the Leica Gallery in São Paulo. These are the first show with digital images?
No, I showed my work from mono. The first book I did was mono last year, and I had many shows of that. In fact, there's one opening at the Leica Gallery in Washington next week, November 7th.
So photography is still the same from film to digital?
Well, you know, the way I describe it is I could talk about this gallery in Italian, or I could maybe switch to French. It's the same gallery. It's a different language, but it's the same gallery. Now, I worked for 55 years in the darkroom, and I was getting to work slower. And along comes digital, and all of a sudden, I'm doing a book every year. I love the language. Learning to photograph in the digital world made me start to think about everything digital.
Okay.
Not just photography. I did a TED Talk last week, and it's coming out tomorrow, and it's called Finding Your Visual Identity in the Digital World. Now, digital means more than just photography. It means a lot of things. So, that's a long answer, but I like it a lot.
We like long answers.
Okay, let's go. Let's finish now. Gente, obrigado. Eu vou só mostrar. Quero mostrar. I want to show you two together. Can you go a little bit to the side, because we want to show this